Welcome to the Earning Freedom Podcast. I am Michael Santos with michaelsantos.com and prisonprofessor.com. Today is actually Tuesday. I'm looking at my calendar here, October the 27th. Really excited to be sharing some messages today. This is really just a preliminary message that I want to give to those who visit the Earning Freedom Podcast because I've got a really exciting guest that's going to be coming on. I'm going to be interviewing him at 10:30 this morning. It is Dan Caldwell, who is the founder of Tapout. Those of you who watch mixed martial arts will know that Dan Caldwell, otherwise known in the media as PunkAss, is a guy who started this company from scratch when he was just a kid out of San Bernardino, California. Him and his buddies put this program together, and they turned it into this multi-$100 million company that has just been extraordinarily successful. You've seen it if you've looked at those shirts that say Tapout on them. So it was a pretty cool thing. I remember watching when I was in prison back in the mid-1990s, I think it was. I was watching a mixed martial arts fight. I think it was Griffin versus Bonner. It was a phenomenal fight, and Tapout was doing actually a television show along with it. I'm going to be asking Dan about what it was like to start a television show. I'm going to ask him what it was like to transform his life from being a kid coming from a bad neighborhood without much money, without much education, but just building something that was really phenomenal that influenced, hundreds of millions of people. And I'm just really encouraged to be telling this story. Why? Because I know that the listeners of the Earning Freedom Podcast are living in struggle, living in difficulty. They're in jails, they're in prisons, they're in schools for at-risk youth. And it's always been my passion to inspire those people that they can become something more, that they can do something more. And I speak to them not just as a journalist, but as somebody who was in that chair. I served 26 years in federal prison. And while I was in that federal prison system, I always had a vision of coming back to society strong. That's what I try and teach through the Earning Freedom Podcast, through the mastermind program that I offer to jails, schools, and prisons, through videos that I offer here, through mastermind courses where I show how this strategy not only empowered me through prison, but it put me on a track to begin building a really successful life when I came back to society a little more than 2 years ago. In fact, later this morning today, on Tuesday, I will be purchasing my fourth rental property. When I say purchasing, it's been kind of in the works for about 3 weeks right now since I've located the tenant, found the property, negotiated the deal. Today I'm wiring the money and closing the deal, and I'll be building a course around this, how other people can build success through real estate, even if they're in a difficult challenge right now. It all begins, I think, with this message of looking into the future. That's what I try and share all the time. I suspect that's what I'm going to hear during this podcast with Dan Caldwell. I'm really looking forward to hosting Dan. Later this afternoon, I'll host another podcast with an individual who did time in prison and is currently working with the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers on the Clemency Project. All of these, everybody I interview, every message I try to bring is about success. It is about recognizing that regardless of where you are today, you can begin sowing seeds for a better life. You can begin sowing seeds for a phenomenal journey. And I'm not somebody who's just telling you this message because I read it in a book. I'm not telling you this just because I'm an evangelist for somebody else. I'm telling you this because I was in struggle. I made terrible decisions when I was 20 years old, went to prison when I was in 1987 and served 26 calendar years in prison. That's 9,500 days. I've been out of prison or concluded my obligation in August of 2013. So it's just been a little bit over 2 years. But because of the seeds that I started sowing while I was incarcerated, life has been a phenomenal, exciting time for me. I want to share those strategies. Those are strategies that I learned from masterminds that began with Socrates, Mandela, Gandhi, and now people like Dan Caldwell and other business leaders, because these are individuals who have achieved something. I really believe we can learn from that. That's what I try and share with the Earning Freedom Podcast, the Earning Freedom Message, the Earning Freedom Mastermind Program, the real estate course that I'm developing, everything. So hope that you will be able to listen to the Dan Caldwell message. I will obviously be using social media to promote it, but most importantly, I look forward to sharing it with people who are incarcerated. Oh yeah, I've got one other exciting message is I'm signing a contract later this week with the distributor who is going to allow us to bring in the Earning Freedom Mastermind program into prisons in the state of Alaska. So if you're in Alaska and you're able to listen to this podcast, I want to thank Union Supply for having the trust in me, a guy who was in prison for 26 years, to allow me to be able to distribute content to them. And I hope that we can inspire people in the state of Alaska's prison system, just as we're doing in the state of Maine's prison system, just as we're doing in the state of Washington's prison system. And as I want to do, I'm going to be meeting with the state of New Mexico's prison system a little bit later. So it's very important to me to spread this message, to show people that regardless of where you are today, you can start sowing seeds for a better life, for a better outcome. And there's no better time than today to start. Thank you so much. I am Michael Santos with the michaelsantos.com and prisonprofessor.com and the Earning Freedom podcast. Thank you so much. Oh, one last question. If you are listening to this podcast in the free world, if you have access to iTunes, please subscribe to the Earning Freedom podcast, rate and review the show. It is free to do so, but it is your subscriptions, your ratings and reviews that allows me to expand the distribution of this across the country so that we can reach more people who are living in struggle and challenge. Thank you very much. I'm Michael Santos with michaelsantos.com.